School District Board of Education meeting on September 14th, 2020, here at the Intermediate School Gymnasium. Mr. Bigham, roll call, please.
Mr. Abbott?
Present.
Mr. Bratton?
Present.
Mr. Jimmy Johnson?
Present.
Mr. Rod Johnson?
Present.
Mrs. Sherman?
Number 3, pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Number 4, approval of the agenda. We do have some additions and some corrections we need to make. First one being 9F1. You guys should all have a copy of that. The second one is 9C5, page 3. We need to change 5 to 6 on page 3.
From 5 hours to 6 hours. On number 5.
Then 9C8 on page 3, we need to add middle school and high school.
Intermediate school.
Or-
Middle school and intermediate
Or
school.
middle school and intermediate, okay. Any other questions? Hearing none, may I get a motion, please?
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Abbott, seconded by Mr. Jimmy Johnson. Mr. Bigham?
Mr. Abbott?
Yes.
Mr. Jimmy Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Bratton?
Yes.
Mrs. Sherman? Mr. Rod Johnson?
Yes. Number 5, approve the minutes from the August 10th, 2020 regular meeting. I did not see anything. Did anybody by chance?
Look good to me.
All right, I will go ahead and make this motion.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Rod Johnson, seconded by Mr. Bratton. Mr. Bigham?
Mr. Rod Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Bratton?
Yes.
Mr. Abbott?
Yes.
Mr. Jimmy Johnson?
Yes.
Mrs. Sherman?
All right. Number 6, public participation. We have Carmen Spellman here with us today from the Transportation Department for her update.
I have a long update today. So we'll start out with, we have 16 high school, middle school routes, 7 intermediate, and 9 primary buses. The buses actually are great in numbers. The most we have on a bus is about 38 in the high school for group 1. The least is 16. The shortest route is 22 minutes now. The longest is still about an hour. Those high school buses are traveling about 619 miles per day. The intermediate for group 1, we have about 20 kids is the most and 12 is the least. Again, about an hour, and shortest is about 35 minutes, going about 320 miles. Group 1 primary, the most we have is 27. The least amount we have is 14. Again, the longest ride is about an hour, shortest is 45. Those buses run about 412 miles a day. Group 2 in the high school, the most we have on a bus is 37, the least we have is 18. The shortest route we have is about 31 minutes. They're running about 600 miles a day. Group 2 intermediate, we have about 22 is the most and 9 is the least. Shortest route is 42 minutes with those 9 kids. They're running about 345 miles. Group 2 primary, we have 25 is the most, 14 is the least, and the least, or the shortest route is about 36 minutes. They run about 389 miles. We have 2 special needs buses that run for our high school special needs, Fairfield Union, and then the Bloom Carroll Preschool and the Liberty Union Preschool. Those 2 buses travel about 81 miles for group 1 and about 108 for group 2. The Career Center went back today, and they have juniors go this week, seniors go next week. Fairfield Christian, Fisher Catholic, and St. Mary's, they were all full-time. They go 5 days a week. So we're running about 135 miles a day for those 2 buses. And the hybrid, well, I just told you about the hybrid schedule for them. And then we have, the 3 vans are all on the road. So we go to Amanda Clear Creek, Walnut Township, and Eagle Wings, and they run about 210 miles a day. We have 1 student who will be going to Burn Union once they go back. All the buses were inspected in July. Everything passed, everything looked great. They had to do minor repairs, but nothing major. And then I'd like to give a huge shout out to one of our bus drivers, Cindy Hutchinson-Willard. She has gone above and beyond this year, well, and last year. At the end of the year last year, she would give me her route and she would go and sub wherever needed. So she's just done a fantastic job this year. We're cleaning the buses in between every route. So they get sprayed down with a disinfectant in between every route. Then they're, doing it again at night when they come in. So everything everything seems to be running pretty good. Of course, hopefully we'll have the 3 new subs tonight because we're in desperate need of those. But other than that, everything seems to be going pretty good.
As far as cleaning the buses afterwards, how's the feedback been from the bus drivers? It's part of the job?
Yeah, it's part of the job. There's been a few who grumble, but not, it's part of your job.
Right. It's a big change.
It's a huge change this year, and some of them are like, do I have to do it? Well, yeah, you have to do it. It's, you go through, you spray it down, and it's easier with those machines. You literally walk back through the bus and spray every seat. It dries within 10 minutes. So I think it's fantastic.
Is there anything we can do to make your life a little easier, obviously, besides employees?
You can get your license.
I know somebody does.
Huh?
I know somebody does.
He took another job.
Carmen, I just want to thank you and commend you and the entire department, Tony.
Yeah, Tony's been doing great too.
Carmen's assistant, it really helps out. It's been a tough start with this pandemic and trying to get schools open, but to hear the numbers, and I know the parents are helping us out by transporting a lot of their children too, but most of our buses are down to 1 student per seat. And then on top of it, with the every other day schedule, trying to keep your route straight and not pass by a student or a house. We want them to be out there every day on time.
Right.
I've received very few, if any, phone calls about issues. You worry about those, especially the first couple of days of school. And I just want you to know, I think you've done an outstanding job, so has Tony and all your drivers, and I appreciate
Thank you.
what you've done to get our schools open.
The group 1, group 2 really wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be.
And we have some families that aren't because of
Right.
different last names within the same family, and that can get tricky for a driver. Drive down the road, keep an eye on kids, remember where you're going to stop on your route sheet, especially for substitutes. That's even more of a challenge, but you've done a good job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nobody else has any questions? All right. You guys have a good night.
You too.
Is there anyone else that would like to sign up for public participation before Travis brings that? Moving on with our public participation, a citizen granted permission to address the board shall speak no longer than 3 minutes at one time, except by consent of the majority of the board members present. A maximum of 30 minutes of public participation may be permitted at each meeting. The Bloom Carroll Board of Education policy requires that individual names not be used as part of a complaint or concern being stated to the board during the public participation part of the agenda. The board rests in its president the authority to terminate any remarks which may be defamatory, abusive, or otherwise cause undue interruption or interference with the orderly conduct of business. At this time, I will call up Amber Daniels.
Yes. Is it okay if I speak for a minute?
Yeah, you're fine.
Okay. I chose to do the BLA program. Both of my students are doing the BLA program. And the reason that I chose it was because my children have complex medical needs, so in-person was not an option for my family. And my choice was not to do in person. My choice was to do BLA or search elsewhere for their education. I'm a huge public school advocate, and the reason when I saw that you were offering the BLA program, I chose it for that reason because I wanted to keep my public funds in the public schools. And I encouraged other parents to do the same. I encouraged them online, in the Carroll Mom Group, in person when I talked to other parents who were trying to figure out what they should do with their children. And I'm gonna be honest with you, a lot of us right now are feeling pretty let down with the program as it is. I'm not just speaking on behalf of myself, I'm speaking on behalf of several families. The program was touted to us as student-led, and it's absolutely not student-led. If you have children in the younger grades, it's 100% parent-led program. But that's not even, at this point, a lot of us have figured out how we're doing our own lesson plans and breaking it down ourselves. The biggest problem is the links in the program don't work. The questions don't line up with the information that's provided. There's videos that the person, I don't know how they thought they were making videos for elementary school kids because they talk in the most monotone voice and they're teaching math to second graders. The pages and pages, it's not even assignments. It doesn't even give you an idea of how to break them down daily. It's just pages and pages and pages of text. And as a parent, you take that PDF, this is what I'm having to do on Mondays. My kids are not even really doing much educational stuff. On Monday, I get up Monday morning and I wait for the teacher to put it online. And my complaint is not with the teachers, I wanna make that clear. Because I know that they're dealing with a lot of stuff across the board with this. But I have to sit down on Monday mornings and I have two students, one in second grade, one in fifth grade. They're both on IEPs and one has special needs on top of their special medical needs. I'm having to break them all down and I'm making lesson plans. That's how I spend my entire Monday. So I go through the program and I break it down so they're doing every single subject every day. Because they could, my son who's in fifth grade, he could very easily go and hunt and peck and answer all the questions and be done with it all in a day and a half. But he wouldn't learn anything, and that's not the point. The point is to absorb the information and carry that knowledge on and build on it as they move on to different programs and stuff. So I'm having to do this on Mondays, and they're sitting on their tablets or watching, having them watch science programs while I'm doing all this. And it makes it extremely difficult when the information that I'm trying to download and print is not even working in the program. So half the information I'm having to go outside of the program and trying to Google it and trying to find other places that are adding it. Every week with this program, I've had to purchase materials outside of the program, whether it's books or counting blocks, just supplemental stuff, which I don't mind doing as a mom. But my biggest complaint, and the biggest complaint I hear in the group of parents, is that with this stuff being given to us on a Monday, I mean, Ms. Sherman, you said you're an educator, correct?
I am.
Can you imagine walking into your classroom on a Monday morning as your students are coming in, and that's the first time that you see the material that you're gonna teach them for the whole week? And having the lesson plan in that moment and try and not take away from what you're trying to teach them? I mean, throughout the week, I know that I'm trying to do my best to hit every point, but I'm an above and beyonder, and I know a lot of parents are working outside of the home on top of it, and you know, with everything else going on too, it's a lot of work on the parents. So what I'm just here to ask is that the program be given to us on Fridays instead of Mondays. That would be the biggest thing that you could do to help us, is to give us all the stuff for the next week on a Friday. Because that would give us the whole weekend to go through it and get those copies printed. And then also, before the program is given to us on Friday, somebody just go through and vet and figure out what's going on with those links. Because it's a lot of the material, and the hardest part about it is it's the material that engages the children that's missing. Because you got all these walls of text that, you know, kids are not gonna sit there and stare at that. It's all the worksheets and the videos and the things that are actually more engaging that is, that's helping. And I think that's, you know, another thing I wanna say is a lot of these kids are kids that have special needs. And I mean, and my whole thing, like my shirt says, inclusion is my love language. Like, come on, we can't be excluding these kids that are at home. They need their education. They're better than this. They deserve better than this. And so that's pretty much, any questions for me about how it's going? Or,
I can certainly respond, and I greatly respect where you're coming from as a parent with children that have special needs, parent, you know, with medical issues with your children. So I feel for you in the situation that we're all in. There are some things I can certainly look at that you mentioned, but I want you to know there's a lot of work going on behind the scenes. Let me address the first one.
sure.
The access, I will work with the principals and the teachers to see that a lot of the lessons, the units are already available, but but the visible date for the family is
Uh-huh.
typically on a Monday. If we can make that adjustment to a Friday, where
That would be
the next week is visible, gives you time, because as you know, any child, K-4, K-5, my youngest is in 5th grade. My 7th grader and my sophomore, they can go off on their own, they understand the technology, how to navigate, kind of troubleshoot sometimes getting here and there on their own. A 5th grader, she needs a lot of parent involvement just because of her age, she's 10 years old. As you know, there's a ton of adult, whether it's the parent or an adult or a mentor at home, any child in kindergarten, 1st, 2nd, 3rd grade, to just work independently, it's not realistic. And,
Right.
I understand the issues and the amount of time that takes for the parent that's choosing this option. But with the links, this has been an issue, that we became aware of the first day. And let me give you a little bit of background and let you know what's going on and that we're working on it. Okay, it is a technical issue. Progress book, the one part that was attractive about this was that it's on a platform that our teachers are already trained on and familiar with. It's in Progress Book, their grade book, okay? And then for the students, they also have, all of our students already have a Progress Book account to check grades as well. Now they can go in with this BLA, Virtual Learning Academy, and their online lessons. BLA is developed by the Jefferson County Educational Service Center. Those lessons have been developed over years. They are then exported to Progress Book. Progress Book is owned by a company called Frontline Education. They are a huge software provider for grade books, student information systems, other databases. There's over 700 schools across the country that use Progress Book. Over 75% of the Ohio schools use Progress Book. So it was an attractive platform because we already are familiar with it. But what happens is Frontline runs security updates, background, to fix issues within their program. And they were told in a security audit in August that they needed to update some feature, not of BLA, not of Progress Book itself, but some other application. When their engineers ran this hot fix, somehow it broke the links. Some of the links are broken that are PDF files or video links that have a space in the file name that are embedded in the BLA lessons. I know this is pretty technical and on the back end, but that's what happened. So as we have found out from teachers, from parents, from some students at older levels, that hey, this link isn't working, it's not taking me to the resource. That's where we are. What do you mean? What is going on? And we're looking. We can go in on the back end and of course look at the lesson, look at the teacher, see what the teacher has assigned. But I was on the phone Saturday morning at 11 o'clock with the CEO and who's also the CFO and the founder of Progress Book, Software Answers. He developed the company in 1994. I was talking to him Saturday morning, and he believes their engineers have developed a code or program to go back in and fix these links from the BLA lessons, because BLA again exports into Progress Book, then we all see it accessible. Okay, our teachers can see what lessons, our kids can see the lessons, but they have to run a hot fix throughout this week, and they're testing it. And they're very confident that they believe the links will be fixed this week, and then next week we should see that if there's any links. At this point, they don't anticipate that being an issue any further. So behind the scenes, we're really digging in. But if something like that happens in the meantime, and on top of this, our curriculum director has had an emergency in her family, and she's been out. And I want you to know that if our teachers hear from a family or a student, they're told to email me, and then I go straight to BLA because they can still fix the lesson without sending it to Progress Book. And if there's a resource that's not available, I've had to email Bridge to Terabithia, a 7th grade book, that the link wasn't working. We had to send that to the families directly, and then they had access to that because that link wasn't working. If that happens, please let us know. Please let the teacher know. The teacher passes it on, and we'll get that. But I want you to know on the back end, Frontline Education, Progress Book, they're working on this. They believe that they will have this fixed this week, and we should know more early next week. Those are the two things. There's a lot of issues that we could talk about tonight, but I heard you say that the timeliness, maybe getting a jump on the lessons, and also the links, making sure that they're working. If they're in the lesson but they don't work,
Yeah,
that's
because we absolutely need the lessons earlier on Friday. Like, I'm so serious about that, because like my son, just an example, today he has a science experiment that he's supposed to do.
Yeah.
And it's an engineering science experiment, and it says, have a ping pong ball, and like just a bunch of material that I'm like, I don't have those things laying around.
Yeah.
And I don't wanna just skip it, or, I mean, I could try and figure out a different one, but that takes work too. So, like, I would like to know ahead of time, so I can get the right materials, or I can create something similar, so he's not missing out.
And when we say student-led, you get that unit for the week, and you will see there might be 30 questions, 40, 50 questions in a lesson. And that's where, if you look, as you continue going through it, and I know you're having your younger children, and it says complete questions 1 through 13, and then 14 through 25. Break that up per day, chunk it.
That's what I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, did you see that? That's exactly
And
what I'm
you
doing.
can jump around and go to different parts within the lesson, but
That's what I'm doing.
I know this is a huge challenge, and
Yeah.
we're trying.
Okay.
It's not perfect. I'll let you know. You can just Google it. You can go to one of the largest school districts in the nation, Miami-Dade in Florida. Huge issue with their curriculum that they spent millions of dollars on for 19,000 different students. You can go to Pickerington, you can look at Upper Arlington.
And they've got
and
racism issues in there.
Yeah, I mean, you can look at, Upper Arlington is using, Acellus, $134,000. Problems with that. Westerville spent $534,000 on, a program called Calvert. Pickerington was using Apex. Right now, I'll be honest with you, I feel like this is such a challenge, and we're in the middle of the river, and we got a flash flood going on, and there's no other horse to jump to, and I don't wanna abandon the horse in the middle. We got some things that we can try to improve upon, and it's gonna take a little bit of time. I just want you to know we are available. Our curriculum director will be back tomorrow.
Okay.
I've been getting in there in the details of the lessons when I have time at any time of day to try to help or provide some response. Our teachers are obviously challenged because they're teaching students in front of them, even though it's roughly half a class. They have to supervise and provide that direct instruction. But if there is something that you're working on and you can't access it, let our curriculum director know starting
What's a good
tomorrow.
portion of the second grade lesson for this week?
I'm sorry.
What portion of the second grade lesson for this week, the links are all broken?
Can you
There's,
tell me, do you know who's the teacher? I can look at the
Mrs.
lesson.
Graham, she's aware.
Okay.
She's aware when she dropped, but the links are broken, and there's questions that correlate with like a story that's not available.
Yeah, so what happened, like I said, when they ran the security fix,
Yeah,
those VLA links got broken, and now their engineering team is working on that, and they believe they can repair that without our teachers having to re-import
okay.
those lessons.
So
But
you don't expect that would be an issue, hopefully, come
that
next week?
should not have been an issue. That's what I've been working with VLA and Progress Book on, and that's why I'm talking to the CEO of a
Okay.
very large company directly,
So
trying.
you have his number, because I will give him.
No, in their defense, I will say this. When our teachers hear that there's a problem, VLA directly has been extremely responsive, immediately,
Okay.
within minutes. And we typically can get it fixed and get that information back to the student or the parent.
Okay,
Progress Book or Frontline Education, they have been, for me, in a small district of 2,000, to be able to call on his cell phone on a Saturday morning and work through this and say, give me an update, what's the plan this coming week, what is your team working on, have they been able to troubleshoot this? It's a priority, I
Well,
guarantee you it's a priority.
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but what you're explaining to me right now makes a lot of sense, and I think that there's maybe a little bit of a breakdown of communication, because there's a lot of VLA parents that are having these same concerns, and we didn't have this answer, that's why I came today. So maybe that's something that, I know you have to put out a million notices all the time, but maybe if that's something that you can tell us in one of those newsletters, I think a lot of other parents
Yeah, we set
might
up
not be as frustrated.
We set up a distribution list directly just for VLA families to
Yeah.
continue communication, but literally it was Saturday that I got the answer that I was looking for, that their engineering team has troubleshooted it, they think they
Okay.
have a code that they can write, install this fix, and from there, they don't wanna say too much because they gotta test it this week,
Okay,
and they're gonna test it on our system, because there's over 100 school districts in
Sure.
Ohio using VLA, and they're having the same issue. So I hope that we can get this addressed, but if you have a problem this week, please let us know. VLA will get the content to you that you need.
okay,
And just bear with us, I know it's hard.
And to your point, you're hoping, you said next week, we're hopeful that it can be fixed.
We're hopeful. I
Well, I
mean,
think that's
again,
what
they're
you're
testing it this week. Now, they can come back and say, Sean, bad news, our engineers, it didn't work. And then they're gonna have to continue working on it. But
Okay.
just know that we are definitely, today I didn't have time to get a message out
Sure.
with all that, with the board meeting and everything, but we will get some communication to those families that we're aware of the links. And I'll have to work with the principals and the teachers to see, especially at the lower levels, if we can get those lessons.
Okay.
Literally, instead of clicking on September 14th that it's available, we would put September 11th and then you could see it.
That would be the absolute most helpful thing that you could do.
Okay.
Because even like with my son's fifth grade, his music showed up last Thursday. And it's like a whole lesson on all the instruments. And he answered the questions and he got an A, but I guarantee you, he doesn't know. Because I didn't have that whole week to break it down and go
Yeah.
through and, show him videos that go with it and everything else. So he's not gonna remember any of that. He needs that full week to really absorb it all.
Yeah, I know, we gotta get through this and again, all districts, every superintendent I talk to, we're spending 99% of our time trying to address these online options. And, school's going good for the most part for the in-person, even though it's every other day, but, you are not forgotten. I'm telling you, I'm spending 99% of my time on this issue.
Okay.
So,
Well, I appreciate that. And I think that if, like you said, if you get that communication out, I think a lot of families would feel a little less like I was feeling when I walked in this room first,
well, thank you for being here and
Yeah.
sharing your thoughts and the thoughts of others.
Friday, get it on Friday. I'm just gonna put that on my calendar.
Thank you.
All right, I'm gonna go. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. All right, number 7, treasurer's recommendation and reports. Mr. Bigham?
Yeah, item A is approve the August financial statements, total expense $9,244,060.62, including just under $5.6 million in the consortium. It's electronic board packet, page 13. The revenues were exactly as we had predicted, with the second half real estate and public utility being this year on the new reevaluation amounts. We knew that would be quite a bit higher than last year, so that came in exactly the way we had predicted. Also, unfortunately, the semi-annual casino revenue distribution was received. Again, it comes semi-annually, so it covers 6 months worth of the revenues from the casinos throughout Ohio. Normally is about $56 a student. Certainly, to nobody's surprise, this was a lot less here as you cover January through June. But we still did collect a little under $31,000 from the state via the casino revenue distribution. Also new for the packet here had been requested on page 19 of the electronic packet. We have an updated enrollment, students and seats report. It changes, as you can imagine, by the minute, but as of last Wednesday, this was how we looked in terms of attendance, students enrollment and attendance. Has it been requested at the last meeting? We did break out the VLA students with the students that are actually attending in person, so you can see that. And in the total in seats with the total sections. We do need to make a correction. There's actually only 6 fourth grade sections, so we'll make that next month. But you can see 2,168 students total. Again, it does include the VLA students, an increase of 87 from the prior year, and also an increase of 5 open enrollment students coming in. So again, you can kind of see our enrollment, how we're looking at that, and making sure that our class sections and our teacher-to-student ratios are within our goals. Any questions on the August financial statements or the checks written during the month?
I have a quick question.
Yep.
Mr. Bingham. The state aid, so that does not look to be a significant drop from prior year. When will that change? I know that.
Right now, I wish I knew. Right now, they are funding us directly at what we ended the prior year at. So that includes the 8.3% cut that we sustained in May of 2020. But right now, and I have not heard any indicators that would lead me to believe that a second significant cut is on the horizon. So at this point, again, it's still at that lower level, but there hasn't been a second cut that we've had to take on, so.
Any other questions? I'll go ahead and make this motion.
Second.
Motion moved by Mr. Rod Johnson, second by Mr. Jimmy Johnson. Mr. Bigham?
Mr. Rod Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Jimmy Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Abbott?
Yes.
Mr. Bratton?
Yes.
Mrs. Sherman?
Yes.
Item B is approve the first permanent appropriations for fiscal 2021 as follows, has listed general fund through Title 4A on the second page of the agenda. Again, just real quickly, this is a culmination of literally starting back in January with the tax budget, going through all the planning sessions, the capital budget that the board approved, plugging in all of the other items to get to this budget. Obviously, the majority of the focus is going to be on the general fund. Page 27 of your packet, probably a little more information than is needed, but just to kind of put this in perspective of how we get to the point where we have a general fund budget. Certainly, we start with our revenue, and I won't go through all this, but we've included a pretty good reduction in the income tax, a pretty good deduction there, again, in the casino revenue, leveling off of the state funds, so a decrease in some other areas such as interest earnings, some pay to participate, some things like that just due to the pandemic. We are being very conservative on our revenue estimates, as you can see here on the far right, 2021 budget, a decrease of a little over 2% that we're projecting to our revenues. Page 28 is a breakdown of the actual general fund budget that we are proposing. Again, the total appropriation is $21,947,360. As you've seen before, we break it down both by the object and by the department. Again, we've tried to be as frugal as possible, and looking at every area that we can hold back or reduce, obviously without affecting the day-to-day educational process. The capital budget was cut significantly, but as you can tell, we've got some increases in some areas that are just simply unavoidable. The transfer out is a big one. I think our food services is going to need another sizable transfer. And then as we are now running our buses again and things like that, things like fuel, and it's just inherently going to be an increase from the prior year. But even with that, this is only a request of an increase in 3.87% from the prior year budget. So at this point, obviously, our revenues are going to look to be projected lower than the budget, but I think this is, A, it's conservative, and B, hopeful that things will improve as we move through fiscal 21. This cannot increase, so these amounts are set now, and the only way they can increase would be subsequent board action.
$994,000 is a lot.
It is. It's my plan is, and hopefully with the finance committee and Mr. Hahn, is to we'll have another income tax collection in October, a 5-year forecast of the board in November that the four of us can meet and maybe kind of get an update, and then certainly we'll have an update for the board too. But it's just going to take a couple months to get to that point.
Any questions?
Is this on the state aid, are you assuming 8% reduction?
Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions on the appropriations for fiscal 21?
Hearing none, may I get a motion, please?
So moved.
Second?
Motion made by Mr. Bratton, second by Mr. Abbott. Mr. Bigham?
Mr. Bratton?
Yes.
Mr. Abbott?
Yes.
Mr. Jimmy Johnson?
Yes.
Mrs. Sherman?
Yes.
Mr. Rod Johnson?
Yes.
Item C is approve the establishment of the following funds. 507 is the Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Fund, and the 510 is the Coronavirus Relief Fund. Both of these are federal grants provided by the federal government. Obviously, you can see the authority that we are requesting to add these funds, and also the purpose For the most part, the 507 fund, we will be, because this grant extends over 2 years. The Coronavirus Relief Fund is a lot tighter grant window. But the 507, we'll look to add some safety, some equipment, some cleaning, things like that. But for the most part, it's going to be used to fund mobile technology improvements for our students. So that'll help to offset some of those general fund expenditures or permanent improvement expenditures on a normal year. The 510 fund, we're doing more. We're paying for some additional custodial hours that we've added to help disinfect and clean and make sure that we're as safe as can be. So the Coronavirus Relief Fund has been more geared toward the PPE supplies, safety measures like that for cleaning and keeping our students and staff as safe as possible.
Is that 507 similar to the CARES Act?
Yes, that was provided. It was provided through the CARES Act. Yep. Mm-hmm. They were up in the appropriation, so you can see the 507, a little over 87,000, and the 510, just under 111,000, the appropriation. So.
Any questions for Mr. Bigger? Hearing none, may I get a motion, please?
So moved.
Motion made by Mrs. Sherman, second by Mr. Abbott. Mr. Bigham?
Mrs. Sherman?
Yes.
Mr. Abbott?
Yes.
Mr. Bratton?
Yes.
Mr. Jimmy Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Rod Johnson?
Yes.
And finally, we'd like to recognize the following donation to the Bloom Carroll Local School District from an anonymous source to help offset kindergarten school fees for a student.
May I get a motion, please? I'll second. Motion made by Mr. Jimmy Johnson, second by Mr. Rod Johnson. Mr. Bigham?
Mr. Jimmy Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Rod Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Abbott?
Yes.
Mr. Bratton?
Yes.
And Mrs. Sherman?
Yes.
Number 8, old business. We have nothing under that this time. 9, Mr. Hahn, Superintendent's recommendations and reports.
So just a few things. Tomorrow, the Ohio school report cards come out for every school district. Just want to, in case you get questions about it, there's a lot of data missing. There was not even any state testing in the spring. So in terms of achievement component, the progress component, which is what value added to see if children are making a year's worth of growth, and gap closing for different subgroups, economically disadvantaged, special education, other minority groups. None of that data is available and is not even part of the report card. The revised code requires the state to produce a report card, even though there won't be any data on it. There is data that will include the graduation component and the Prepare for Success measure, meaning how many students are taking AP, CCP, coursework, those types of things. But that'll all be from the previous school year of 18-19. So it's just being re-reported because they have to issue a new report card. So there's no funding tied to this at this time. There's no measure of accountability due to the spring pandemic and the waiver of all state testing in the spring. So just be aware that all the data is old data that will be on the new report card, okay? Lunches, Travis might want to jump in here on this a little bit, but we sent something out recently. The State of Ohio Department of Education requested, as all the states did, for the U.S. Department of Agriculture to provide or extend the waiver for lunches for all students that are paying, that are on either free, reduced, or paid lunch. So children in our school district through December 31st, we're taking advantage of that option. The school district can receive reimbursement from the federal government. Now that the federal government has warned that they're going to be out of money, the U.S. Department of Agriculture cannot extend it at this time beyond December 31st. But any student, free, reduced, or paid, can go through their lunch line, even if there's money on their account. It doesn't actually get deducted for the actual meal. Now, if they buy extras that aren't part of the meal, those things they would still be charged for. But for now, through December 31st, parents don't really need to put any money on the account. They get a lunch lunch, they get the milk, and that goes for any student in our school district. So, that waiver, in that program, again, was extended. It was provided in the spring, continued through the summer, and we just got approval a couple days ago, on that. So we will be taking advantage of that for now.
Are BOA students taking advantage of that?
It's offered to them,
So
yes,
it's still,
they can-
are we
yes.
delivering it still to them?
Yeah.
They can come in and pick up.
Okay, we'll pick up, okay.
Yeah. Travis, you wanna talk about reimbursement?
Yeah, the
I don't know
reimbursement,
if you know those yet.
it's the reimbursement's based upon what the free lunch reimbursement would be. So even if we serve a paid lunch to a student who doesn't qualify for free and reduced, all of those lunches that we serve are being reimbursed at a much, much higher rate than what normally would occur, or even if we were collecting for a paid lunch and what we can charge. So financially, as long as it can provide there, it will help our food service fund as well as obviously our families.
We believe it covers the cost of a meal.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, any questions about that? Okay, just beginning of the year, honestly, we've had a good start. I want to thank the staff, every department you could possibly imagine. The in-person, the hybrid schedule, people are getting settled. That yellow status schedule is working. It's providing the social distancing on our school buses, in our classrooms. I think there's a lot of people, including myself, that would love to see us in 5 days a week and understand the importance of that. But that, it does present some issues with being unable to social distance right now. And when we do have a case, we would have many more people being quarantined by the health department as a result of that. But just implementing safety guidelines in the start to the school year, the teachers have provided some good feedback that, it's just more manageable as well, especially with the younger kids and these masks and trying to go through all the daily safety procedures. So we've had a good start. In terms of cases, we will have them. Our school reflects our community. This virus is everywhere, throughout the country, the globe. It's in our county, it's in our communities, and we expect to have cases. The big thing is having guidance parents. As badly as students need to go to school, if they have illness symptoms, we need to stay home. We can't take the risk of sending them a couple days later and then they don't kick the illness and they end up getting tested and they're positive, and now we're quarantining people and teachers, students and teachers. So we have had one ESC employee. We had two staff members prior to the start of students. We had 3 student athletes earlier back in August, July, and August. Since school started, we've had 3 students since school started. One was online, completely online, and 2 were in person. The Ohio Department of Health order for reporting, we're fully following that, and even doing a bit more in terms of providing our own notifications and contact tracing the day of, rather than waiting 2 or 3 days for the health department to get the information, make the phone calls that we believe that their child or the staff member might have been exposed. So we're moving on it much more quickly than what is even required. All this data gets reported to the health department. Every time we get a phone call of a positive staff member or a positive student, we notify the health department, the director of nursing, and we work with them. We follow their guidance as health professionals. And we communicate at the building level with anybody in any activity or club that the child or staff member may have been involved with. We use the seating charts on the buses, cafeterias, cameras, security footage. We talk to the family, we talk to the student or staff member and ask them where they have been and make every attempt to verify all that. And then we send out communications to direct individuals, personal letters, and by email and personal phone calls to those people that have been impacted directly and may be receiving a call from the health department to quarantine. So I wanted to explain that process. The health department is now required to report to the State Department of Health, the Ohio Department of Health, and every week on their website they will be updating how many active cases, how many recovered cases of students and staff members in each district in Ohio. So there's a reporting process for that. Breakdown of attendance, the buildings are really right at 50%. It's amazing how well balanced we have the buildings. Maybe out of line about 20 students in one building, but you know, overall with the general population, to be able to get to that 50% is pretty good. The biggest issue I've had is some BLA issues that we talked about tonight. I won't go into a whole lot of more detail, but those are some of the issues that we are working on, and just know that we are available, supporting those families immediately during the day, and we're working through some of the technical issues with Progress Book and BLA. There is a grant, Travis, again, you might want to chime in here, but there is a Broadband Ohio connectivity grant that we applied for. We did receive, or we were awarded up to, I don't know if we'll get the full amount, but up to $151,000 for Wi-Fi infrastructure. We're looking at improving the infrastructure on our campuses to make it more robust and accessible outside the buildings. And then also, we're looking at cellular Chromebooks. There's some areas of our school district where high-speed internet is not that great, especially in like Liberty Township, north of Pleasantville Road, in that area. And we're looking at cellular Chromebook devices. They cost about $800 each. This grant may help, and we could provide Chromebooks that don't have a monthly service fee. It's a one-time purchase, but they have cellular connectivity for high-speed internet. So, Travis, the tough thing about this grant is the money has to be received, encumbered, and paid within about a month and a half or 2 month period, in October through December. So I don't know if you have any more information.
Yeah, we got to hustle on it, but it'll be on the October agenda. I don't have the exact amount yet, and we have to get our application approved for exactly how we're going to use the funds. So hope to have more information at the October meeting.
In terms of planning, October planning session, I'm looking at some things about in regards to moving and working with a couple moving companies to the new elementary school next June. In that process, getting some pricing from a couple different companies that I'll be meeting with over the next couple of weeks. Obviously, we have the K2 building, the 3-4 building over here, and we're not moving furniture, but we do have teacher materials and books, things like that, teacher supplies that we need boxed up, and some of it we need left behind, some of it will go that is still being used and are relevant. Not everything will be able to go. We won't be taking furniture. The new building is fully furnished with all new furniture, but I'll be working with the moving company. We'll be looking at staffing. We know we have some custodial needs, possibly extending hours into next school year for full 8-hour shifts. For second shift custodians in the building that has 10,000 square feet in it, a little bit bigger than this building in the primary school. So it couldn't be worse timing with the economy and funding, but we're going to have to figure something out. We're going to be looking at starting to prepare a list. Travis and I will start to prepare a list, present to the board with construction funds. The project is under budget. There's a lot of interest money as well. Travis, you want to talk about how that money has to be, from the May of 2018 bond issue, how that money has to be spent according to the ballot language and law?
Technically, you must spend all of that within 3 years of actually receiving the proceeds, which we received in October of 18. So theoretically, we would have about a year from now to exhaust those funds. But we're getting to the point where, along with some of the contingency funds and the interest earnings, it's probably time to have a discussion about additional expenditures that we would use those for on the project. The kindergarten playground we had talked about, I don't want to get too in detail, but things like that we really need to start to have discussions to begin getting those things on both Shore Architect and Summit Construction's radar to make sure that we're doing it right, but we're also maximizing those dollars.
The fact that, we're under budget, and we don't know, it's a broad range, I don't want to put a dollar amount on it, but it's significant right now. That could possibly help the district and some other facility improvements that we have, but we can't spend that money on salaries or benefits and those types of things, or curriculum materials, but there's some things possibly with transportation and facility improvements.
So are those separated, like the interest and then the funds that were dispersed?
Yes.
I know the PI is separate. So
Yes.
is the overage just on the construction side?
Yeah, it would just be for whatever was on the ballot. We tried to leave it as open-ended as possible. You don't want to leave it too open-ended for those voting, wanting to know specifically what they're voting on, of course, but we do have a little bit of
And when that
leeway.
construction site has to use on that.
Yeah,
on that construction.
yeah,
And so does the interest.
and so does the interest, yeah.
So is the interest, but.
Yes.
Mhm.
If you look at page 18 of your packet, you can see the total interest as of right now is 502,000 plus we have quite a bit that we believe we will be under on the project, with some construction and the district feels that we're gonna certainly have everything be under budget. So we'll have to start talking and planning for that, but there's some things that we can do around the district with different programs and to improve some areas. I think is
I
what-
think it's really important that we're communicative about why we're under budget. I know this, with a switch with the bricks and that, the flipping of a few things saves major money in labor and
Mhm.
all of that. I think that's
Yeah.
important for people to know that we didn't just test them in the mountain.
Right. It's been our goal is to provide everything that is in the bond issue and do it in an efficient manner, so.
So I mean, is it gonna be like April, May, that people will be in to see what maybe we need before October, we need to spend the money? Or do you plan on deciding all that before then?
There are kind of, it's almost like a similar wish list of items, we're gonna have to get some estimates on some things, that we bring to you, and then we'll have to kind of decide what the board wants to do, how much of it, and what do we wanna improve basically around the district, so I don't know if I'm misunderstanding or hearing something, but there are things that we can do at that site, at the K to 5 site, like, and it would be another change order for a
Right.
kindergarten playground, okay, but then that lowers the amount that I'm talking about that's left over, which I still think is the right thing to do, but there are things we can do off that site on our Carroll campus to improve. So, or over here, if this is gonna be a preschool, we wanna do some work on the tile and asbestos abatement out here, those are things we can do. If we wanna look at a bus, we don't officially have a bus compound or garage, we just park our buses all over driveways and around the campus where we can. Most districts have a bus compound, like a maintenance building with a bus parking area. Those are things that we can look at. Performing arts, do we look at doing some things there, instruments or a trailer, new trailer, I know the trailer's getting in bad shape. Athletics, you look at our light poles and our lights at our stadium. Those are all things that we could potentially look at and try to do. So, depending on where it's all finalized, but it's gonna be a significant amount. Okay. There's a safety, health, and wellness meeting, September 23rd, that I wanted to share with Mr. Johnson, and he's the liaison there. And then athletic events, the Ohio Department of Health and the Ohio High School Athletic Association sent an inspector out to our last home football game. We passed all areas in terms of compliance with the safety protocols in place. So I wanted to provide some background there, commend our athletic department and our maintenance department for working together to meet all those guidelines. So that's it.
Did they give you a heads up on that, or did they?
They did the night before. So we're in good shape though. All right. Any questions?
Sean, you want to go ahead and get a little bit of update on the school building now?
Yeah, right now, we have, more masons that are coming out. The pandemic has impacted the schedule a little bit. We're still targeted for May of 2018. It's about 2021, next spring, sorry. We started the bond issue in May. But, we're targeted for May of 2021. They believe they can pick up some time. The big issue has been laborers or masons. A lot of individuals are choosing not to work due to the virus, and sometimes they cannot work due to the virus, so that's impacted the amount of masons. So some construction, at their own cost, has had to go back to our masons that are subcontractors and say, hey, look, we're gonna bring in another crew and kind of divvy the money up because we gotta stay on schedule. So we're supposed to be, as of today, I think another 10 to 15 masons on the job to start getting the brickwork, some of the block work in the gym and cafeteria area, and starting the brick on the main academic wing. They're starting the brickwork on the back of it. So right now, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, that continues. You go inside, walls are being put up on the inside, being framed with metal studs. Interior cinder block walls are going up. It's coming along. The roof is on over the academic areas, and they're putting the turn lanes. They've started the work on the drainage for the turn lanes, and that will continue the next couple of weeks as well. We should be done with that in a couple of weeks. So right now, it's just kind of tedious, one thing after another, but it's moving along.
Thank you.
All right, nothing under 9B, students and programs. 9C, approve the substitute list number 2 for September 2020 as submitted by Fairfield County EOC. Number 2, approve the employment of Susan Garber as a 5.25 hour per day bus driver on a 1-year limited contract with Step 13, effective September 15, 2020, to fill a vacancy created by the resignation of Suzanne Brustel. Number 3, approve the salary column change request for Jennifer Cooley from bachelor's degree with 150 semester hours to a master's degree pursuant to receipt of official transcripts effective September 15, 2020. Number 4, approve the temporary reduction in hours of Rebecca Roberts, lunchroom monitor at the primary school, from 2.5 hours per day to 2 hours per day for the 2021 school year due to increased custodial hours. Number 5, approve Michelle Dawson as a home instructor for a homebound student for 6 hours per week at the tutor hourly rate for the 2021 school year. Number 6, approve the following requests for an unpaid leave and dock day for Anna Hatch. That would be 2 days, October 12th and 13th. Number 7, approve the following Family First Coronavirus Response Act request for intermittent leave for up to 60 days or upon expiration of the Family First Coronavirus Response Act, whichever comes first, for Holly Lovelace, Julie Ebert, and Lauren Toterai. Number 8, approve Molly Foster with Ohio State University for 25 hours of field experience with Kim Decay at the high school, the middle school, in the intermediate school, and the primary school with Krista Harlander during the 2021 school year. Number 9, approve the following classified substitute for the 2021 school year as presented, A through D. Number 10, approve the following staff members as after-school detention monitors at the intermediate school for the 2021 school year. That'd be Emily Bogart and Amber Blazington. Number 11, approve the following academic supplemental contracts for the 2021 school year. Abby Dival, Cindy Smith, and Hannah Spicer. Those are new teacher mentors at their buildings. Number 12, approve the following academic supplemental contracts for advanced placement instructors for the 2021 school year as presented, A through G. Number 13, approve the following College Prep Plus instructors for the 2021 school year as presented, A through E. And number 14, a supplemental contract, approve the following fall athletic supplemental contracts for 2021, pending receipt of verifications and background checks and contingent that payment shall be made provided that the board is permitted to and holds the pupil activity in light of illness, COVID-19, and the Ohio High School Athletic Association and state and local precautions order and guidance. Partial performance of duty shall be paid on a prorated basis following verification to the treasurer from the principal or athletic director of the portion of duties completed by the supplemental contract holder. That would be Jason Wright as a high school faculty manager for the fall, Group B, Step 0.
Thank you. Any questions under personnel or employment?
No, sir.
May I get a motion, please?
Second.
Sorry.
The motion made by Mr. Bratton, seconded by Mr. Jimmy Johnson. Mr. Bigger?
Mr. Bratton?
Yes.
Mr. Jimmy Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Abbott?
Yes.
Mrs. Sherman?
Yes.
Mr. Rod Johnson?
Yes.
9D, contracts and agreements, approve an internet access service agreement with Meta Solutions with Winter Elementary School. Number 2, approve the contracted service agreement with the Educational Service Center of Central Ohio for visually impaired student services for the 2021 school year. Number 3, approve an occupational therapy service agreement with Rehab Associates to provide service per IEPs for a BC student receiving services out of the district.
Questions? I'll make this motion.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Rod Johnson, seconded by Mr. Jimmy Johnson. Mr. Bigham?
Mr. Rod Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Jimmy Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Abbott?
Yes.
Mr. Bratton?
Yes.
Mrs. Sherman?
Yes.
Nothing under 9E. From the addendum, 9F, accept the 9F1, accept the resignation Sarsfield as a high school faculty manager for the fall season for the 2021 school year, effective for the entire fall season. And
We probably should have put
we need to vote on that.
Yeah, we
Sorry.
put a,
We can write that in motion.
yep.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Abbott, second by Mr. Bratton. Mr. Bigham?
Mr. Abbott?
Yes.
Mr. Bratton?
Yes.
Mr. Jimmy Johnson?
Yes.
Mrs. Sherman?
Yes.
Mr. Rod Johnson?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, thanks, Mr. Hahn. All right, 10, new business. Under A, approve the following policy for a first reading. 1, JED, student absences and excuses. B, approve the cancellation of the September 30th, 2020 planning session. Any questions in regards to the one policy for the planning session? I will make this motion.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Seconded by Mrs. Sherman. Mr. Bigham?
Mr. Rod Johnson?
Yes.
Mrs. Sherman?
Yes.
Mr. Abbott?
Yes.
Mr. Bratton?
Yes.
Mr. Jimmy Johnson?
Yes.
Number 11, board reports and information. A, Board of Education liaison updates, facility management, Mr. Hahn covered that for us. 2, personnel and labor management, Mr. Bratton, Mr. Jimmy Johnson.
Nothing new at this time?
Okay.
Number 3, OSBA representative, Mr. Sherman, Mr. Johnson.
Inquire.
Yeah, you guys did see, where,
See my email?
yeah,
I saw.
where it'll be online.
Yeah,
One of us will
it's
have
gonna
to.
be a pretty stale environment to attend that conference
Exactly.
online.
But we still have to we'll still have to have a delegate. probably.
Are they gonna hold a business meeting?
Yeah.
I haven't received, normally I get a form to nominate our delegate. I have not seen it yet. Jennifer and I are looking for it, so.
We may have it in October.
Yeah.
So we'll
Yeah,
probably
let's try
need
that ahead of time.
somebody to attend that, online.
I've done that.
Yeah.
We'll find somebody. All right, great. Number 4, policy.
We just had one.
Safety and wellness, you said September 23rd, correct?
Yeah, we meet, when needed and also a couple times a year. We do have a safety, health, and wellness committee meeting. Bob Peltier is our chair, Mr. Peltier, and we will be meeting, if you can attend, one of you, Mr. Abbott or Mr. Johnson, 2:30 in the high school media center on the September 23rd. So we can spread out a little bit more there.
That's at the high school, correct?
Yeah.
Finance, Mr. Bratton. Sounds like we'll have a meeting soon with Mr. Bigham.
Mhm.
Any ideas when you want to hold that? We want to do it before meeting?
Probably November, if that's all right.
Okay. B, upcoming PTO booster Board of Education meetings. 9/28 is Staff Professional Development Day. There'll be no school that day. October 12th, Board of Education regular meeting back.
That should be at the
Yeah,
middle
sorry,
school,
we gotta make that, can you take note of that?
middle school,
Back to middle school.
middle school media center, yeah.
Middle school, take that as a correction as well. Also on October 12th, the athletic boosters meeting, at the Stadium Pavilion at 7 o'clock. October 13th, the elementary PTO meeting, looks like that's time, just to be determined. And also on the 13th of October, music boosters meeting, 6:30 concession stand.
The boosters meetings may move into October, they may be one more outside, but they've been given the okay to come inside.
The athletics 14th, by the way, not 12.
You said 14 track bud?
I know they were looking for people, didn't they, not they found people to take the leadership?
They're, well, because all of the offices are filled,
Yeah.
but that doesn't mean that they still could use people.
Right, I never, I saw the call out and I never saw the answer.
All right, any questions? All right, may I get a motion to adjourn? Motion made by Mr. Bratton, second by Mr. Jimmy Johnson. Mr. Bigham?
Mr. Bratton?
Yes.
Mr. Jimmy Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Abbott?
Yes.
Mrs. Sherman?
Yes.
Mr. Rod Johnson?
Yes. Time out.